My name is Phil Dellinger. I'm professor of medicine at Cooper Medical School of Rowan University and senior critical care attending at Cooper University Health in Camden, New Jersey. Symmetric peripheral gangrene, fascinating but devastating, associated most often we see it in 2020 due to microvascular thrombosis, diffusely from disseminated intravascular coagulation caused by sepsis. The microvascular thrombosis produces ischemia of the more peripheral tissues and also either peripheral extremities, digits, fingers, toes, nose, but also skin, where it can be associated with ecchymoses and purpura and even purpura fulminans. Unfortunately, it's mainly all case reports in the literature because it occurs so infrequently. There have been some nice reviews published, a ton of case reports. It's often inappropriately attributed to vasopressors because these patients often have septic shock that get the diffuse microvascular thrombosis and the cyanosis, and but those are traveling together. The vasopressors would not be considered to be the driving force behind this microvascular thrombosis and tissue loss. How do you treat it? Well, we have to use chalkboard logic because we don't have patients to enroll in a clinical trial because it occurs so sporadically. There's a lot of case reports and case series of people trying a wide variety of treatment interventions, everything from warm compresses to injections and regional injections into stellate ganglia, trying to decrease sympathetic tone. In these case reports, it does not appear that it's made any difference. Certainly, the bottom line treatment that makes sense is to treat the underlying infection and to diagnose it earlier and treat it earlier and get rid of it, because it's the infection that's driving the pro-coagulant response, which is traveling next to the pro-inflammatory response. There's good literature support that the pro-inflammation and the pro-coagulation are intertwined and feeding on each other. And in these patients, they get this microvascular thrombosis. They also have a lot of pro-inflammatory reaction. They have the vasodilatation. They have the septic shock, which is why these patients are often on vasopressors because septic shock is a pro-inflammatory driven process. The treatment is early diagnosis and get rid of the infection, and all of these other things you might try based on chalkboard logic or based on case reports, but again, no evidence that they make a difference. So it's very important to achieve a mean arterial pressure that produces adequate tissue perfusion, which is typically 65 millimeters of mercury or more. Whether you achieve that perfusion pressure with vasoconstriction, with vasopressors, or by increasing flow with either fluid resuscitation or inotropes is not clear. Everyone says perfusion pressure is important. We target perfusion pressure and it can be achieved with some combination of flow and vasoconstriction. Which is more important, or is just perfusion pressure important? I don't think we know the answer to that question. Hopefully we'll know the answer in the future. So there are three inotropes that we're talking about here in this database analysis. We talked about milrinone, we talked about epinephrine, and we talked about dobutamine. And if you look at the hazard ratios, upon analysis, particularly with the propensity matching, clearly shows no concerns with milrinone, not even a trend with a higher hazard ratio. Whereas there is some concern with dobutamine and epinephrine with having the higher hazard ratios on the propensity matching, particularly epinephrine. Does it mean we shouldn't be using dobutamine or epinephrine? No. It just means that that's something to catalog away. And remember, we don't have a lot of prospective data on choosing particular vasoactive drugs to treat septic shock.